Today's Tuesday, July 30th. It's 10:01. I'm at Troop L headquarters here with Alex Duncan, Sergeant Aaron Keith, and Lieutenant Philip Pierce. Okay, Alex, this is going to be referenced your officer-involved shooting that happened. Okay, so I need to ask you a few questions. So how long have you been with the department?
3.5 years.
Okay, and before that, you were an officer for how long?
5.5 years, 5.5 years.
Okay, and what departments?
Jonesboro Police Department, Truman Police Department, and Rogers Police Department.
Okay, and what is your rank currently?
Trooper.
Okay. And your position and regular duties is trooper and your highway patrol, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. What shift do you typically work?
Currently it's the evening shift, 3 p.m. to 1 a.m.
Okay. What time did you come on duty?
3 p.m.
Okay. And what was your assignment for that day?
Highway patrol in Benton County.
Okay. And you were wearing your uniform?
Yes.
Class B, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And your badge, gun, your name tag, all that was displayed on your uniform?
Yes.
Okay. And you were driving a marked white ASP unit?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, walk me through your day. Starting at 3 p. and just kind of go through your day.
3 p.m., get in my car, go on patrol, get gas. I had pulled over off of 612 to work on some paperwork, get some crash reports caught up. After that, went and ate supper.
About what time did you eat supper?
I think it was around 5:30.
Okay. So there was a break at 5:30. Okay.
Yeah. After I had eaten, I went and got some food to take home to my fiance. I dropped that food off and then came back out on patrol to work the highway.
Okay. All right. In your own words, tell me in detail what started happening on the officer-involved shooting event.
I was driving south on the interstate around the 83 mile marker. I saw a little silver car SUV in the median just sitting there. I saw someone sitting in the car. They didn't look like they needed help or anything, just sitting there, so I just drove by. That was around the Magnolia overpass area. I kept driving south in the left lane, and I saw my radar, it said 114, and I look in my mirror, and I see the same car, which was driving fast, and coming up behind me, and I was like, there's no way. And I'm in the left lane, so I was waiting on them to slow down so I could move over and then pull them over, but then the car went over to the right lane, drove past in the right lane. I think it was around 112. I was kind of in shock, so I, catch up to it to initiate a traffic stop. And at that point, he had gotten back over to the left lane. Lights and sirens. His speed had decreased some, but it was still pretty erratic, still pretty fast, because I was up on him with my lights and sirens on. And I thought, for a second, I thought, well, this guy's not going to stop. And I'm looking in his car, looking at him, called the stop in, and I can see him acknowledge me in his mirror. Like, I know he sees me. So at that point, I'm thinking, okay, well, if he doesn't stop, then I know what to do. And then he puts his blinker on, starts moving over. So I'm like, okay, he's going to stop now. And go over to the shoulder. Even when we get on the shoulder, he's still driving pretty fast for being on the shoulder. Get stopped. Put my hat on, get out of the car, and go up there to get him out of the car. So I opened the door, and he had his seatbelt was like, it was on this arm, but it wasn't buckled. I tell him, get out of the car, and almost instantly, his hand on the shifter pulls it back to put it in drive, and it was instant. I knew it was like, okay, this guy doesn't want to do what I'm saying. Slammed the car back in park, and still telling him to get out, and I pulled my taser out. I was like, you're gonna get tased, get out of the car. And he's still not compliant. I tase him, which I think the probes hit him somewhere in the chest, but I was too close for the probes to spread, and I knew for it to be effective I needed to make the connection, so I connected it at his left ankle. And it was still during being tased, he reaches for the key, so I go in to grab the key away from him. He's grabbing my hand off the key, but I get the key out. I throw it, so he doesn't have access to the car anymore. And I think I told dispatch that I tased him and I needed another officer, someone, another unit. And so he still has the probes. I don't remember exactly. I know at one point I pulled the trigger again on the taser, and more probes went in him. I'm not sure where they went. But I was still tasing him and trying to pull him out of the car. But he was kind of caught on the seatbelt. And once I got him like halfway out of the car, got him on the ground, I was giving him verbal commands, telling him to roll over on his stomach, and trying to get him to comply. And at that point, we're out of the car, on the ground, at the fog line of the interstate. He's still not listening, still, fighting. And I think it was at the point where he was on the ground by his driver's door, which was open. He had pulled the wires out. I saw him pull the wires of the taser out. And it was kind of like an oh shit feeling, like, no, I don't have that tool. It's not going to be as effective. So I was utilizing the drive stun, trying to, and, just to get some compliance so I could get him to just stay on the ground. And I got behind him because I was trying to get away from the fog line. I didn't want to get hit by a car. Didn't want that. So I was trying to get him back between our cars. And so I got behind him and drug him back between our cars. And I think he was kind of laying on like his right side, kind of. I was over the top of him. He's still not complying. I still had the taser in my right hand, and I punched him in the face with the taser. I hit him in like the left cheek to try to get to, some more pain compliance. And he just kept saying, why? And I told him, it's like, you're going to jail. Roll over on your stomach, put your hands behind your back. In that moment, it was, I don't want to say it was calm. It wasn't calm, but we weren't like actively fighting at that point. I still just wanted compliance. And then after I told him, you're going to jail, something changed. And at that point, I don't know, he started to, he like kind of pushed me back and started fighting I had the taser in my right hand, and he kept grabbing for it, and I was trying to keep it away from him. There were no more cartridges in it, but I didn't want him to have it. And he takes it away at one point, and then throws the taser into the right lane of the interstate. And he's like kind of on top of me. And I'm trying to control his hands because he's reaching and moving. And then the woman shows up, and she runs over. And I told her, go get the taser. And we're still on the ground at this point between our cars. And she goes and gets it. I try to utilize the drive stun, and she comes back. She gets on top of him, and she's trying to help hold him down. And at this point, when we're laying on the ground, I got kicked in the head. I don't know how many times I got kicked in the head. I know at least 2. And I realized, like, when we're on the ground, I'm laying. I'm laying there, and he's kicking me in the head, and I look down. I see his hand on my holster, like reaching, like his hand was crawling up to my gun. The hood of my holster was down, and he's pulling his hand up towards my gun, and my thought was, he's not going to get my gun. He's not going to get it. And I have this woman here who I know came to help, but I didn't want her to get hurt. I'm glad she was there, but I didn't want her involved anymore. I wanted her, like, out. So I told her to leave. I told her to go, and because he still had his hand on my gun, and I like wrapped my leg around, because he had his arms. He was laying kind of like a T. We were laying kind of like a T, and I wrapped my leg around to try to push him away, like to spread his arms out to get him away from my holster. And when I got enough space, and I knew the woman wasn't there, and I got enough space between us and pulled his arms away, I drew my weapon, fired it once. After that, I did see that I did hit him, but he was still alive. And then I got up off the ground, continued to give him commands, which he did not comply with. And I saw the blue lights. I saw the cars. So I knew they were there. And so I held him at gunpoint between our cars until Richard got over there and holstered my weapon, and then we put him in handcuffs.
Okay. So when you approached the car, what was he wearing?
He had on blue jeans and no shirt.
Okay. And so with no shirt on, how did that affect you trying to get him to comply?
It made it difficult. I didn't have anything really to grab onto. The only thing I had was his belt, his pants, but with nothing on his torso. It was difficult because get hot, get sweaty, things start slipping around, start moving, and it made it pretty difficult.
So when you went up to the car and you said get out, did he grab a hold of the steering wheel to try to resist you? What did he do to try to resist you when you were trying to get him out and he didn't have a shirt on?
He went to put it in drive, and he did have a hold of the steering wheel. And then once I put it in park, I put it in park, and he had the steering wheel, and it was key, and I think he was still trying to figure out what to do. And then that's why at that point I needed more compliance than what I had. And that's when I, pulled my taser. I was like, hey, you're going to get tased.
So when he put this thing in drive, were you fearful that he was going to try to accelerate with you partially in the vehicle?
Absolutely.
Okay. And so you had to reach in across him. Now, explain to me how the gear shift was on the Toyota. Where was it located?
It was in the center below the radio. Park up top, drive down bottom.
So for you to be able to reach it, what did you have to do?
I had to lean into the car.
Okay. And put it in park. Did he try to resist your hand putting it in park?
He did. He pulled my hand off the shifter.
All right. And so you got the car in park. You were able to grab the keys. Then what?
I threw the key.
As you were getting the keys, was he trying to get the keys?
Yeah, he grabbed, when I was turning the key off in the ignition, he grabbed a hold of my hand to try to take it from me.
Okay. All right. But you were able to get the keys and throw them so that now you know the vehicle's not going to try to take you down the road.
Yes.
Okay. All right. How were you feeling at that point once you got the keys?
Once I got the key out, that was one of 1,000 things I was still thinking. And I felt like someone was going to get hurt. I knew that someone in this scenario was going to end up hurt, because from the moment I contacted him, it was it was scary, not knowing what was going to happen next.
Was he trying to talk to you at this point?
Yeah, the only thing I remember him saying is why.
Okay. And what commands were you telling him?
I was telling him to get on his stomach, to get out of the car, put your hands behind your back, get on your stomach.
You just kept repeating these commands to him?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And what did he do when you kept repeating these commands to him?
He did not comply, and he was actively fighting to not comply.
Okay. All right. And so when the other lady showed up, where was your did you know that he had your taser? At what point did you know he took your taser?
As soon as he took it out of my hand.
Okay.
I saw
What were you thinking when you took it out of your hand?
I was scared because I knew if he had that, even though it didn't have cartridges in it, I knew he has a weapon that he's going to use against me. And
where were you at that point when he had your taser?
We were on the ground between the front of my car and the back.
Were you on top or was he on top when you were fighting?
I think he was on top of me.
So when he took your taser, where was he when he took your taser from you?
Body position.
Do you remember that? Your body position?
I think I was on my back. I think I was facing him and he was facing me. I know I was on the ground.
Okay. You're on the ground. Tell me how you were feeling. He's got my taser. What am I going to do now?
Yeah, it was scary. I knew I needed him to not have it, and I tried to get it back. And when he had it in his hands, and I saw him throw it, I knew the general direction of where he threw it. I didn't know, how far it went or anything like that.
And at that point, then what? It's gone. Your taser's gone. What are you thinking now?
I'm thinking, now I have to fight this guy, hand to hand, without any tools, and I was just trying to figure out what my next step was. How am I going to get this guy to comply? Because pain compliance wasn't effective.
Okay. And so pain compliance isn't working. Then, when pain compliance isn't working, you see his hands start coming towards your pistol at that point, or what?
Yeah, because the woman, I had the woman try to get my taser back, and which I wanted to utilize it again, and we were still on the ground, but he had a hold. He was reaching for my belt. His hands were moving. I got kicked in the head, and I knew at that moment that I didn't have a choice. In that moment, I didn't have a choice. It was going to be me or him, and it wasn't going to be me. And that's why I wanted her to leave. I didn't want her around. I didn't want her to get hurt. And he had his hand there, and I tried. I used my leg. I wanted to create enough distance to where once I got my gun, he didn't have a chance to touch it. But I knew when his hands were there, like that guy would have killed me. Without a doubt.
Was he saying anything at this point whenever you got your gun out? Do you remember?
I don't remember if he was saying anything. The only thing I remember him saying was why.
Okay. All right. So you shoot him, and then what?
So I shoot him, and it hit him in the right temple, grazed his head. Once I realized that it did hit him, he stopped fighting because he was holding his wound. I think probably in shock, and at that point, it was effective. It did what I needed it to do. It gave me the opportunity to get off the ground, not be in a vulnerable position, not be able to take myself out of the situation to where he can hurt me. And so I still gave him commands after that, which he didn't comply with, and I held him at gunpoint, and waited.
Okay.
When you just said that you felt that he was going to kill you, what gave you that feeling?
The fact that he was, number one, trying to go for my weapon, trying to get a hold of it. He had already taken my less than lethal option. And kicking me in the head. I felt like he's gonna try to get away at no expense.
Okay.
Like it just felt like he was gonna do whatever it took.
I know you were fighting with this guy, but your attention was on trying to retain your weapon, but did you ever see his eyes? Was his eyes looking at your weapon, or did he have this intent look on? I mean, people can have an angered look on their face. They're going to try. When somebody's fixing to hit you.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all been out there on the side of the road, and we know when somebody's clenching up that fist and they're fixing to hit us. Was there any indication from your prior experience, a look that this guy was giving you or anything like that, that just made you feel this guy's coming after me? He's going to my gun.
Yeah, I could see his face, and he was just like, I don't know how to word it, but it just like his eyes were like empty and just determined. Like and it really set in that it was going to be violent when I started getting kicked in the head. And if I knew, like, if he kicks me enough or in the right spot and I'm unconscious, he's going to take that gun.
Okay.
And so
I got one more I want to follow up on. When you were walking up to the car, did you ever observe if the tail lights, if the backup lights came on to show that he went into park or anything, or were you just more focused on approaching the vehicle?
I was just focused on getting to him.
Okay. But when you did get up there, the vehicle was not in park? When you started... When did you realize the vehicle was not in park?
When he grabbed the shifter.
Okay. So it was, he didn't have it in part in bringing it down. Was it just, he just like grabbed the shifter and it was still in drive?
He was. I don't remember if it was in neutral or I don't remember exactly what position it was at, but it had moved. It was actively moving. It was not in the park position, I know, because I shoved it back up.
Okay.
I put it in park.
Okay.
But I don't know at what point it came out of park.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so when you're on the ground and you're fighting, does he grab a hold of your arm?
Yeah, he had my arm.
And which arm did he have?
I don't. I know at one. I had the taser in my right hand,
Okay.
and I know he had been grabbing at it. I know he had a hold of one of my arms at one point. I think it might have been my left arm. I don't remember exactly which one it was.
So, I guess where I'm going with that is when he grabbed a hold of your arm and he had a hold of your arm and you're trying to break your arm free from him, what was going through your mind right then?
I couldn't. I did not want him to have control over my body.
Okay.
He was in a position of advantage. I was in a position of disadvantage. I am a smaller woman, and men are statistically stronger and bigger, and I just could not let him have control of my body.
Okay.
Let me get to that part. When you grabbed a hold of his arm, as Agent Cordis already advised, and you told us that the guy didn't have his shirt on, what was his physical body strength to you? I mean, was he solid? Was he flabby? I mean, when you grabbed a hold of him, were you grabbing solid muscle, or were you just grabbing?
He was not flabby or fat by any means. He was
solid
stout.
then?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So it took almost all your strength to be able to get your arm back away from him when he was holding on to you.
Yes.
And right then, how did you feel?
I was scared. I just knew if he got a hold of me and kept me in a position of a disadvantage and assaulted me, his strength versus mine, he would overpower me, and he would hurt me or kill me.
So at that point in your mind, from your training, you knew you had to do whatever it took to be able to get back in the advantage.
Yes.
Okay.
I think we got everything. I think we're good.
Okay, so last couple of things that they want to ask on here. When was the last time you fired your weapon prior to the shooting? Do you remember when the range was? That's probably when it was.
June.
June? Okay. And did you qualify then, or was it just...
Yes, I qualified.
Okay. And let's see. What about your taser? Have y'all done any kind of taser training or
We
anything
did
at the
taser
range?
training at the range
Okay.
in June.
That was in June also? Okay. And let's see. I think that's about it. Okay, that's all I've got. Senator?
One more thing.
Okay.
You said that you taken some food to your fiance
Yeah,
and went back out on shift.
yeah.
Was everything okay with you and your fiance? Were you in
Everything was great.
no fights, anything like that? So you
No.
had a clear sense of what was going on when you went back out on duty?
Yes.
Everything good?
Everything was good.
Okay.
This interview is concluded at 10:30 a.m.